Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about trigonometry. This is fascinating. This is what we use in math when we can find the distance without physically measuring something. All right? So when we talk about trigonometry, trigonometry is Greek for measures of triangles. Now you guys don't have to write any of this down. This is just some little information, okay? It focuses on right triangles. Now, this is very, very important. We'll be using new buttons on our calculator. These are the buttons we're going to be using: sine, cosine, and tangent. So if you have a calculator like this, they're right here. We're going to be using sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, if you're at home and you don't have a calculator, you're using your phone, you're going to be using these ones right here: sine, cosine, and tangent. All right? Those are the keys we're going to be using when we're working with our trigonometry. Now we made a foldable. The foldable should look like this. This is where we're going to be putting our notes today. So make sure you have this: sine, cosine, and tangent. And a little short reminder, I'll say this all the time: SOHCAHTOA. That's how we're going to remember our shortcuts: SOHCAHTOA. All right? We're going to start with our sine. Our sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So if we look at this picture here, I want us to find the sine of A. So if we're looking at angle A right here, we have to do the opposite of that angle. So opposite means we're going to go straight across. So the opposite here is going to be 5. So we're going to have 5 over the hypotenuse. Now the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So 5 over 13. Now I also want us to find the sine of angle B. So right here we're going to write sine of B. Same thing with B, it's going to be the opposite of this angle over the hypotenuse. So the opposite, the one the angle is not touching, is 12. So we're going to have 12 over my hypotenuse. So my hypotenuse, same thing, straight across from my right angle, is 13. All right, so that's where these things are going to be located. Now if we do an example with this, we found our angle. Here is our angle. If we go from our angle, we know the opposite, so I'm going to put an O there, and we have to find our x, and it's across from the right angle, so this is our hypotenuse. So the one that uses O and H, opposite over hypotenuse, is sine. So for this problem, we're going to have the sine of 16 equals opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of 16 equals the opposite, which is 7, over x. Now our goal is to get x all by itself. So first we're going to get x, and we're going to get out of the denominator, and we're going to multiply it by both sides. Here it's going to cancel. Over here we're going to get x times the sine of 16 equals 7. Now to get x by itself, we're going to divide both sides by the sine of 16. When we do this, these cancel, and x is going to equal 25.3957. You have to go 4 places after the decimal. Did you guys all hear that? You have to go 4 places after the decimal. That's what we're going to do when we're working with our trig. 4 places. Okay, there we go. There's sine. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Now we're going to move on to cosine. Now cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. We're going to do the same thing here. First thing we're going to do is find what would it look like if I did the cosine of angle A. So the cosine of A equals adjacent. Adjacent means the side that's touching. So this side right here is touching that angle, so I'm going to use the 12 over my hypotenuse, which is straight across from my right angle. The cosine of angle A equals 12 over 13. Now if we do the same thing, but we're going to use b this time, we have to go with the side that's touching it that's not the hypotenuse, so that's right here. So the cosine of angle b equals 5 over the hypotenuse straight across from the right angle, 13. Alright, now we're going to get on to this example. If I give you this angle right here, we have to figure out what we know. We know the hypotenuse, and we know the side length that it is touching. So we know the adjacent. I'm going to put an A there. Since we know hypotenuse and adjacent, those ones go with cosine. Because cosine of 42 equals the adjacent, ADJ for abbreviation, over the hypotenuse. So now we're going to plug in what we know. We know that the cosine of 42 equals the adjacent, which is x, over our hypotenuse, which is 18. Now to get x all by itself, we need to get rid of this 18, so we're going to multiply both sides by 18. There, we're going to cancel. Now we're going to type in our calculator 18 times the cosine of 42. When we plug that in, we're going to find that x equals 13.3766. All right, plug that right in. You guys, you should make sure that your answers are matching mine in your calculator, because if it's not, you need to make sure you ask me tomorrow in class, because there might be something wrong with your mode, how your calculator is set up, and we can fix that in class tomorrow, okay? Alright, we're moving on to tangent. Tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So when we look at this one, if I want to find the tangent of A, here's A here. I want the opposite, so that's straight across, the one that's not touching, over, so my opposite is going to be 5, over the adjacent. Adjacent is the side that it is touching, that is not the hypotenuse, so 12. Then when I'm looking at the tangent of angle B, I want the opposite of angle B, so that when it's not touching, which is 12, over the adjacent, so the side that is touching, that's not the hypotenuse, which is 5. Now that we've got that down, we're going to come over here and do an example with tangent. So here I have an angle 24. What do I know? I know the opposite, and I know the adjacent, the one it's touching that's not the hypotenuse. So for me to find the tangent of 24, I'm going to use the opposite over the adjacent. Okay, so when I plug that in, I'm going to get tangent of 24 equals opposite of this is x over the adjacent, which is 15. Now to get my x all by itself, I need to multiply both sides by 15. This cancels, and over here I'm going to type this in my calculator. 15 times the tangent of 24. Get that in our calculator, and our x is going to equal 6.6784. And that is our answer, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we have one more example. This one is not going to go on your foldable, so just make sure it gets written down in your notes, please. We have to look at this. We need to find two answers. We need to find the x and the y. So I'm given this angle right here. And I'm going to go around and I'm going to label everything I know. So my x is my opposite, my y is my hypotenuse, and my 8 is my adjacent. So first thing I'm going to look for, I'm going to find my x. So I'm going to use my opposite, and I have to use the number they give me, so that's my adjacent. So the one that has opposite adjacent is tangent. So for x, I need to use the tangent of 48 equals opposite over adjacent. So if I plug this in, I'm going to get the tangent of 48 equals opposite is x over my adjacent, which is 8. To get this all by itself, I'm going to multiply both sides by 8. Here it's going to cancel, so I'm going to type in my calculator 8 times the tangent of 48, and that's going to give me 8.8849. Remember, 4 decimal places. So now I know x. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to figure out what y is. So to find y, I have to use my hypotenuse, and I have to use whatever they give me. That's the 8. So that's the adjacent. So when I use hypotenuse and adjacent, I'm always going to be thinking about cosine. So I have a cosine of 48 equals adjacent over the hypotenuse. So cosine of 48 equals the adjacent, which is 8, over y. Now we have to get the y by itself. This one's one that takes a few more steps. Multiply both sides by y. These are going to cancel. I'm going to get y times the cosine of 48 equals 8. Then to get y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by the cosine of 48. If I do that, these cancel. In my calculator, I'm going to type in 8 divided by the cosine of 48. So y is going to equal 11.9558. And that is my value for y. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.